cannabis dispensary nurse. And I really want you to write that down. I want you to write down, Barbara BLASER is a cannabis dispensary nurse. I am 73 years old. I graduated, I was born in 1945 in a 2-bed hospital in southern Indiana. My grandkids used to ask me if I rode dinosaurs back then. I graduated from nurses training in 1966 in Chicago, and for almost 35 years I was a psych nurse. I pretty much ended my career in psych as the director of consultation in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Chicago. And I woke up one day, and this is, I have nothing but true stories, although my kids think I read them in Reader's Digest. But I woke up one day in October of 2002, and I was cleaning under my bed, and I found the July issue of Oprah. So you know how often I get under my bed. But the issue was on joy. And I recognized that all of our children were in California. And my husband and I moved 5 weeks later to California. I left the University of Chicago. And I'd spent my whole life as Debbie Goldsberry's mother. And again, has anybody heard of Debbie Goldsberry? Wow, you guys are new. So my daughter, Debbie Goldsberry, won the Freedom Fighter of the Year at High Times, and I went to Amsterdam to see her get that award. But she's been an activist in cannabis since 1988. She was, thank you. She was a student at the University of Illinois, and Debbie says this isn't true. She got a jaywalking ticket for smoking pot. And she actually called me for money and said, I was smoking pot, I need some money. And I said, well, keep walking and call somebody else. Because it was cannabis. It was cannabis. And it wasn't my thing. Cannabis was not my thing. Debbie called me a couple years later, again, not learning her lesson, and she said Mademoiselle magazine was going to do a photo spread on her, and she needed new clothes. And I honest to God said, you little bitch, you think I'm going to... what am I going to say to my friends? My kid is in a magazine about cannabis. And a little while later, I thought, well, that's not very nice, so I ran to Western Union and I gave her money. But cannabis was not my thing. And then one day, about 3 years ago, I actually walked a 5K 3 times. I was much thinner. Thank you very much.
Looking good to us.
And I was really in good health, and I was really proud of myself. I was I was going to lie and say I was much vainer than I am now, but that's not true. I'm still that vain. But I walked this 5K 3 times. I walked it once to put up the flags, once to do it for money, and once to pick up the flag. So I was in really great shape. 3 days later, I was in a coma, on a ventilator. I had to have an esophagectomy. For those of you who don't know, they take your esophagus out, they move your stomach up here. They told me they moved it where my nipples were. They weren't there since 40 years ago, but that's where my stomach is. And I remember coming out of the coma, and the way I remember it, Debbie was on my chest crying. And I said, Debbie, you have to move. That machine will know you're high, and they won't give me morphine. But cannabis was not my thing. I had stigmatized Debbie from 1988 for almost 30 years for being in the cannabis industry, and I didn't really realize it at the time. And when I recovered, Debbie said, I'd read a lot about cannabis. Debbie said, can you come and work in the dispensary? And I said, sure. I'm old. I can work in the dispensary. The fastest growing population was seniors. And so I'm a cannabis dispensary nurse. I see patients every day. I see 3 to 5 patients for hour-long appointments, and I might see 100 to 200 patients a day to give hugs and say, how are you doing? So I was pretty damn proud of myself when I got asked to do this. Thank you. And I've been doing training for a long time, and for the first time I was offered the opportunity to meet with this brilliant woman, Maureen, who helped train us on how to do our panel. And my topic was, I was going to address what it was like to be a 70-year-old in the cannabis industry. And again, I wrote a brilliant presentation. And then yesterday, I was told that our panel was not approved for CEUs because we are cannabis nurses. So I had a really good time last night. Thank you for everything that happened. Did anybody pick up chocolate yesterday? Okay. So I had a massage, and I did that sound machine, and I went back to my room, and if you've had an esophagectomy, you can't eat after 4 o'clock. I ate 3 of these. 3. They're lovely. They're little. They're not even a bite for someone like me. 2 o'clock this morning, my head exploded. I had on my CPAP mask, and I woke up extremely frightened. I believed that my mask was on fire, and I was going to die. I mean, I actually did. And I was really angry at that point because I woke up angry that I had been stigmatized as a cannabis nurse, and the information that I was going to share was not good enough to be covered. So at 2 a.m., I rewrote my presentation for today. You said open strong.
You got 10 seconds left.
Oh, I got 10 seconds. I see patients every day who are stigmatized. We see seniors who have to smoke at Magnolia Wellness because their families won't allow for them to smoke at home. We see people who come in to dab because they live in senior housing where they're not allowed because they're going to get thrown out. We see people who come on Mondays because we give 20% discounts and their Social Security won't cover it and they can't live without cannabis. So I want you to know, as cannabis nurses, I expect you to pick up that flag and carry it forward. Woo, that was fast.